as we dive right into the 8:30 High Beam. And this morning's Talk with the Doc is being brought to you by Mako's Pharmacy at 240 East 3rd Street in downtown Yorksville. Mako's Pharmacy, your local pharmacy with a caring and knowledgeable staff focused on your health and wellness. And the doc that we are welcoming, of course, is Dr. Tim McKnight, as always. Good to see you today through the fog.
Yeah, thank
you. Not
you.
foggy in here, though, so we're all right with that.
It's good in here, but yeah, it is a little foggy outside.
It is. And there's another kind of fog that people are susceptible to this time of year, pollen and other allergens. And
Absolutely.
I guess it's probably a good time to talk about that. I'll try not to sneeze during
we see a lot of it this time of the year. As soon as things start to bloom and blossom, people are coming in with their allergies and asking for some type of help with it. There's a lot of different things we can do. So there's things we breathe in and then things that we get on our skin. And allergies are just immunological reactions to foreign, we call them antigens. They're proteins, something that our body sees it doesn't like. And you get this overstimulated inflammatory response that causes, in the sinuses, it causes mucus buildup, congestion, runny nose, itchy eyes. On the skin, it can cause rashes and itching and all kinds of different skin rashes. And in the lungs, it kind of flares up asthma and asthma-like conditions. So we see asthma this time of year also, and croup in babies.
Now, there are a myriad of over-the-counter solutions for people. How do you sort that out?
Well, you start with the simple antihistamines, the Zyrtec, the loratadine, Allegra, that family, and those are, anybody can get those. And then if you want to go to the next line up, it's the Zyrtec D, Allegra D. And
D is supposed to be decongestant?
Well, it really is a reference to pseudoephedrine, which is an additional agent that acts as an antihistamine. And it's behind the counter because we have to watch the use of it because pseudoephedrine can be made into methamphetamine at high concentrations. But it is the next line up in terms of treatment effectiveness. So Allegra D, Zyrtec D, and those type of medications. And those, for me, those work obviously better than the first line treatment, and they give you a little bit of a I'm not going to say a buzz, but it's like a calming effect. It's kind of I feel kind of chill with this, which is kind of nice, but obviously it's because of the pseudoephedrine in it that it has that property. It can cause insomnia for some people. For other people, it makes them a little bit drowsy, so you have to watch that. If you're looking for something at nighttime when your nose is stuffy and runny and you can't sleep, then the simplest medication in my mind is Benadryl, diphenhydramine, because it's got a sedating effect. But it only works for about 4 to 6 hours. Some people will take Tylenol PM, which is Tylenol with Benadryl in it, but it only allows them to sleep for 4 to 6 hours before it wears off. But Benadryl is another really good antihistamine that you can take with a more sedating effect than most of the others. So those are the over-counter options, and then you're looking at nasal steroid sprays that can work really well for the sinuses. Those are prescription. Nasonex and Flonase are some of those. Rhinocort's another one. And then for those that are they can't get comfortable and they're miserable, we like the steroid shot, Kenalog. So a lot of people will call this time of the year and want a shot, and they come in, and usually the Kenalog shot works. Depending on the person and the allergy load, anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks. So it can get you through that springtime or the fall time when ragweed is bad.
Do those nasal prescriptions have a slight steroid in them?
Yes, they have a steroid in. So it's a topical application, gets right on the mucous membranes, and it reduces the inflammation. For asthmatics, it's the same thing. They're breathing in. Often they're breathing in a steroid that coats the lining of the lungs that reduces the swelling and inflammation. So it can work really well. It really doesn't have much of a systemic effect. People worried, if I take a nasal steroid, am I going to gain weight, get fat? No, it stays
not that
pretty
kind
topical.
Of steroid.
Yes, not that kind of steroid. So those are the common treatments for the allergic rhinitis that we see this time of the year. And I always remind people that there's this load that you have, this allergic load. So you can handle a little bit of dust, a little bit of cat dander, a little bit of some of these typical allergens. But then when you get just above your own threshold, then you're symptomatic. So if you can avoid the exposure to some of these things, then you're right below your threshold and you're asymptomatic. You don't have the symptoms. But, you're out cutting the grass or pulling weeds, or it's a windy day and blossoms are blowing all over the place, and that stuff you're going to be exposed to it. People will also say, well, I've never had allergies before. How can this be allergies? Well, you can develop allergies at any age. And I think we've mentioned this before when we talked about gut health and leaky gut. But these allergens that get in our bodies, again, these are small little peptide chains that leak through a leaky gut because of our diet and other lifestyle issues, and it adds to that allergic load. So, maybe you've never had allergies this time of year, but now all of a sudden you're miserable. Well, maybe one of the things we have to do is go back and look at your gut health. How can we restore your gut health? Because that can reduce that load of things that get in your body. The body says, I don't know what this is. I don't like it. Here's my inflammatory response to get rid of it.
Luckily, you can get rid of a few too, though, right?
Well, I mean, sometimes you can outgrow them. Your immune system side says, I'm not going to react to this anymore. But most of us, I have a miserable time in the fall with ragweed. Mm-hmm. That's my most vulnerable time. And there are years that I will get that Kenalog shot because the over-the-counter stuff isn't working. But I always try to reserve that as a last option. It gets really easy to turn to the Kenalog shot a couple times a year. But over time, it can lose its effectiveness. And it is a steroid with a cumulative effect. Steroids will accelerate the development of cataracts. They can suppress the immune system. They can make your bones weaker. They can cause you to gain weight. So we reserve that as sort of the last resort. And, once or twice a year for most of us when it's really bad is probably not a terrible thing. Mm-hmm. But just realize that, when you're 60 and you've got cataracts that need to be taken care of, it may be 20 years of Kenalog twice a year that's been part of the picture here. Yeah. But the other issue that we're seeing this time of year are the skin allergies.
Yeah, you said being out and cutting the grass. Now you reach into the bushes, and there it is.
Yeah, it could be poison ivy or poison oak. Sometimes you don't even realize what you're touching. It can be, a little sticker on a bush that scratches your skin, and now you've got this terrible itching rash, and you've washed it off, but you're miserable and you can't stay asleep. I saw someone in the office yesterday with this. So we talked about different things, and in her case, we did some steroids, and then she was using the over-the-counter products. You can also, for these skin allergies or skin rashes, you can use over-the-counter hydrocortisone for the inflammation and swelling, and you can use topical Benadryl, a cream, for the itching. So I always try, for myself personally, I go with the over-the-counter products first because they're simple, they're not real strong. And if that works, great. If it doesn't, then I step it up and I'll get the additional help. But usually the skin rashes, in time, they're going to go away. It's just some people are absolutely miserable. When it gets all over the body, it gets in their face and their eyes, and or their hands, they really usually need some kind of pharmacological help at that point.
Yeah, that's a good time for a shot.
Yeah, a shot and even a steroid taper with oral medications can really quiet that down. And so we have a lot of good options, but it's a tough time of year for people.
Yeah, but again, from person to person, this varies as to what you might be more allergic to or less, and what the medication might do for you.
Right, and you have to remember sometimes your pets carry some of these allergens in. Your dog's running through the edge of the woods, and there's the poison ivy and on their coat, and they're not going to have a problem with it, but you're going to pet them. So you just have to be aware of all this. You might not be able to identify where this came from,
right,
but certainly the treatments, if you go with over-the-counter, behind-the-counter, and then prescription, it's sort of a progressive approach, and depending on how bad you are, determines which way you go with it. But these medications usually work pretty well.
All right, so we get a thumbs up for that.
I give you a thumbs up, yes.
All right, thanks. Well, shall we progress next week into a little further into the issues?
Well, yes. Actually, next week I want to talk about the rabbit effect.
Ooh.
There's a really neat study that was done many years ago about the effect of kindness and compassion on preventing and reversing heart disease. So I want to talk about that and expand on that next year. I think next week. I think be a great topic.
That's a great teaser. Thanks. Now we're dangling for a week.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. McKnight. Tim McKnight here as we talk with the doc here on our 830 High Beam. And it's all been brought to you by Mako's Pharmacy.